Thanks for joining us here at Good Teams and Great Teams cover for our Week 17 picks and preview episode. Hope you're all enjoying the festive period, the holidays, whatever you are getting up to. We're going to take a look at Week 17, the penultimate week of the regular season, which is wild. It really just feels like only a few weeks we were sat here doing all the division preview shows and things like that to fill up time during the summer. And here we are just a few days before the end of 2023, looking ahead to the second to last week of full NFL football. Gents, I'm joined by Joe and Byron. Gents, how are we both doing?
Grand, yeah. I mean, don't know what day of the week it is. Barely know. Week 17 is apparently all I know. It's somewhere between Christmas and New Year. And I think we have a game tonight. Not games, but a game tonight. Game Saturday, probably. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wild week and last week of the fantasy season as well.
Yes, it is indeed. And we'll more on the end of that. And we've got a great guest that we're going to talk a lot of fantasy-related stuff with later on, Brendon Booth at Big Boned FFB. So, yeah, it'd be great to chat with him as he does our FourFold challenge, but we're going to be focusing a lot on 2024 fantasy. So it'll be good to chat through that stuff with Brendon. But first part of the show, me, Byron, and Joe, we're going to preview the action, talk you through our picks, and we're going to start with the FourFold challenge. We're just going to rattle through it this week. So, yeah, we're going to start with our FourFold challenge. We've not hit one for a few weeks, so one of you two guys is due, and Byron can clinch this week. So, on our FourFold challenge, just a reminder, we pick a favourite, an underdog, an over, and an under, combine it into a FourFold or an ACCA, and try and win some money. And let's say we're about 200 quid up, based on all of our FourFolds so far this year. And we could do with cashing one. Byron and Joe have been on fire. Me, not so much. Maybe it'll happen this week. Who knows? Let's just rattle through then. Me and Joe picked the same one. Joe, you're on the Los Angeles Rams, who are 5.5-point favourites against the New York Giants, which is one of the early Sunday games. Yeah, why have you gone for the Rams?
Yeah, I was shocked that it was only 5.5. I picked him last week against the Saints, and that came in. And I think this, I still think the Saints are a better team than the Giants. So I wonder if it's just because they're playing in New York. But 5.5 felt too low for like the gulf in the teams, how they've been playing the last few weeks. So yeah, just felt good for the Rams. I think they'll win by a touchdown. So they're still pushing for the playoffs, and they definitely need this win with having the 49ers next week, who are not going to be resting the players. So I think, the Giants players might already be on holiday while the Rams have got something to play for. So I didn't think 5.5 was that big of a spread.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just West Coast to East Coast this time. I don't know. But also, I don't know if there's something with the Giants making the switch back to Tyrod Taylor. He gave him a bit of a jolt in the arm last week that enabled them to cover against the Eagles. So, yeah, I don't know. I think I'd be worried if I were you, Joe, because I've been so bad on the favourites that I am also on it. But I'm the same sort of thought process as you. The Rams need it. The Rams can pretty much, this. I think they win this, they're in. It's done. If they get this win this week. So, yeah. And the Rams coming off Thursday Night Football as well. Mm-hmm. Mini buy. Yeah, I like it. Cool.
I was really tempted by this one as well. Then I seen not only had you both picked it, but you'd picked it, Paul. So
yeah,
I think we don't need all three of us on it because that'll take us all down. And with you already on it, I couldn't do it to Joe. So
that's fair. Yeah, it's a worry. I'm so bad at these favourites, but yeah, Rams for me. And Joe, Byron, you're on the Bears. The Bears are 3-point favourites at home to Atlanta in one that the Falcons really need if they're going to keep their hopes of the playoffs alive.
Yeah, Falcons had a big win last week. So that does worry me a little. I just think I feel like I've been saying this for a month now. I feel like the Bears are like a top half team in the NFL right now. Maybe not in top 10, but like in that 12 to 17 range. And I don't think the Falcons are. I think they're very limited. And yeah, Bears at home. Taylor Heineke will turn the ball over, I think, a couple of times. And the last time the Bears failed to cover at home versus the Falcons was actually a long time ago now. November 11, 1990. And I know what you're wondering. What was the UK number one on that day?
Let's have a guess. November 1990.
November 11, yeah. I mean, if you want to be specific. Although this was actually number one for the 2 weeks prior as well. So.
Oh, okay.
Joe might not have been born at this point. I don't know if either of you were born at this point.
I'm January 89. Brian Adams.
No, good shot. I think that was 92 though.
Was it?
Joe's on mute, so I don't know if he's having a guess. But truthfully, it's actually more interesting what was number 2 as well. Oh, we've gone off mute. Here we go. Joe's got something lined up.
Yeah, I was going to say I think Brian Adams is 91 because I was born in 91 and that was around. No, that was big in 91.
Yeah, 16 weeks.
Basically, yeah. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. Go on, Byron, give us a.
I'm not going to give you a sing song. I'll just give you the answer. It was the Righteous Brothers' Unchained Melody for the 3rd week. But much more importantly, much more excitingly, to really date it, it was the new entry at number 2 that caught my eye. It was Gaza and Lindisfarne with The Fog on the Tyne.
Fog on the Tyne is all mine. Lovely.
Yeah, good throwback. But I just think the Bears are a better team, and that historical stat stood out to me. So we threw the Bears in there.
Cool, good stuff. Underdogs, I've gone back to the well. The Steelers, Mike Tomlin's an underdog. Mason Rudolph, maybe a believer again. More importantly, that defense coming alive again has made me a believer. 3.5 points in a game they need to win. I think they've got to have it. They're going to have to win the last 2, aren't they? And this sets up that huge Week 18 game against Baltimore. Rudolph could have a stinker this week. Seahawks got that big win against the Eagles. Thought we kind of fumbled the way through against the Titans last week. I just think maybe another big TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith game, and that'll be enough for the Steelers to win. I'm not going to go back to the well with the stats on the Steelers, but they've been good on the road. They're 7-3 on the road 7-3 against the spread on the road in the last 10. I think it'll just be naturally quite a low-scoring game as well. So I'll like having the 3.5 there. Byron, you're on the Bengals +7 at the Chiefs.
Yeah, just too big of a number for me. I really struggled finding underdogs this week, I must say. Last 3 times the Bengals have been 7-point or more underdogs. They are 3-0 straight up. It's obviously 3-0 against the spread as well. I just think it's too big of a number. The Chiefs, I don't want to say they're fatally flawed, but the defense has fell off a lot from early in the season when they were really carrying that offense. They are down to, I think, LaMichael Pirine, I think, is their fittest experienced running back. So it looks like it's going to be Deneric Prince and LaMichael Pirine if CEH can't be fit because McKinnon's out, Pacheco's out. It's asking a lot of that passing game, which has failed to shine at all. Jake Browning obviously had a down game last week, but I think there's enough around Cincinnati to keep this close. Even if they don't end up sneaking it, just a touchdown feels a lot against this Chiefs team right now. Yeah,
just a couple of conflicting ones. That we've got a hot over. I know it's the underdog, but for the purposes of just betting in general, a hot. We'll run it because I've actually picked the under for this. So we've got a hot road over team. Bengals last 5 Bengals road games have hit the over, and six Chief games, 6 home games in a row for the Chiefs have hit the under. Yeah. So I've gone under 44.5 for that, just to skip ahead. Chiefs have also lost 3 in a row at home, which is wild. And 0-3 against the spread in those because, of course, favoured in all. So, real bad run the Chiefs. I like the under for the Chiefs, that run, and I guess a great shout to have the Bengals. Maybe double it up, Bengals and the under. Joe, you're on the Raiders, 3.5-point underdogs at the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, I was similar to Byron. There wasn't loads of underdogs to choose from who I was fully confident, and then I just went with the gut that it wasn't even like the spread. I think the Raiders could beat the Colts this week, and with that 3.5, gap as well, even if it's a close game, I think the Raiders' defense is showing something, and you just never know what you're going to get with the Colts. So out of all the other one, I was more confident with Raiders. Having a win, cause I don't know if it would be a big upset, but the Colts haven't shown us they're a powerhouse. They're a very up and down team, and I just think how the Raiders have been playing lately. I think they're playing for the coach massively, and I think that defense can give Gardner Minshew some fit like they did with Patrick Mahomes last week.
Yeah, Raiders really good historically in Indianapolis. They're 5-1 against the spread at Indianapolis all time. That runs from 2000 to 2022. But I've done well when they've gone on the road to the Colts. For the overs, I'm on. I hate this. As soon as I put it down, I regretted it. Falcons Bears. We saw Taylor Heineke come back in for the Falcons last week and saw them, have a bit of life offensively, be able to finish some drives. And the Bears, I suppose you never know what you're going to get offensively from them. DJ Moore was banged up. I'm not sure if he's playing this week or not, or if he is going to be playing, but I think we can get enough to get to 39. I struggled with the over this week. But yeah, I'm on Falcons Bears. Byron, Patriots Bills over 40.5 for you.
Yeah, I just kind of feels like Pats are just kind of. I mean, they had a big win against the Broncos last week, but I think the Bills want to go out and after the Chargers close run game. I think this is a big put right game, and I think they always love running up the score on New England whenever they get the chance to. In the post Brady era, this game has gone over 40.5, 5-2, and it's over 4, 2-1 generally since the Tom Brady era finished in New England. I just think Bills are going to try and run the score up here. I think this will be a fantasy game day. Is it this Sunday? Yeah, I'd be looking at Josh Allen paying up as a quarterback. I think he'd be one that I'd be looking at.
Yeah, Josh Allen 7,400 as a quarterback in your Fantasy Gameday Sunday Stars game this week. But yeah, it's a big spread as well, isn't it? The Bills are 13. Yeah.
I did consider it as my favourite as well, but I thought, I got burned last week with the 12 against the Chargers or 12.5. I'm not going to do it again, but I think the Bills can get to 30 without too much sweat here. Yeah. So, it wouldn't take much to get to the over, essentially.
Interestingly, it depends. Like I said, if you think if you're going to go for the Bills to cover, you'd probably take the over anyway, right? But the last 4 times the Bills have been a home favourite of 10 points or more, they've not covered. They've gone 0-4 against the spread. So those big spreads at home, they seem to have struggled to cover, which might lean towards a lower scoring game. But hopefully not, Byron.
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. Joe, you've taken Sunday Night Football, Packers, Vikings for your over 46?
Yeah, I just think both defenses are going a bit downhill, and they both got explosive offenses, especially Vikings with the with Jefferson playing, and even if the quarterback's throwing a number of interceptions, he's still throwing over 400 yards, and that feels like it's their game right now is to throw on teams, and probably one team who can get thrown on is the Packers. So I'm just expecting a lot of points, and I think Jordan Love can do something against this defense as well. I think the first game was a lot closer, a lot lower scoring game, but I think both teams need to win as well. I think it's a huge game in that sense. So I think they're going to start throwing it down the field and start and put the points up, basically.
Yeah, so the winner has hope for week 18. The winner's still alive. Could this be the tie We've not had the tie yet. About it. That just shafts them both. So imagine 23-23 tie, Joe.
Nice little push. I don't know if you've seen you mentioned about Nick Mullins' yards there, Joe. I don't know. Did you see Jaron Hall starting this week now?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, they've announced Jaron Hall as the starter. But I still take your point. I think, Jerry Hall could probably throw 400 yards on this Packers defense. So I don't think it makes too much difference. My one concern, I was really tempted with this one too. Just I think we need a good Sunday night blowout towards the end of the season. The Packers wide receivers seem so bad. Well, and Aaron Jones is limited again. I think he'll play. I think it's more just keeping him rested and fit. But yeah, Detroit Wicks is not practicing again. Christian Watson's not practicing. Jaden Reed's limited. And I'm just like, oh my God. Jordan Love, it feels like every week is like do more with less every single week. I'm not sure they're going to be trotting out Donald Driver next week, maybe. But yeah, I hope it hits anyway because we need a banger of a Sunday night football to see the season to an end.
Yeah, Joe, the Packers, last 4 Packers road games in a row have hit the over. So there's something there for you, hopefully, and that goes to 5. On the unders, we've mentioned already, I'm on Bengals Chiefs under. I just think, the fun Jake Browning stuff, I think, has come to an end, and the Chiefs are a mess. So, offensively, so I'd really struggle to see 45 points being put up. Byron, there's probably another one to look for Fantasy Game Day. Cardinals at Eagles under 48.
Yeah, and it's a Fantasy Game Day where, again, you're probably paying up a little for it, but like DeAndre Swift, I think just get him in there. I think the Eagles want to just go play this one out, and I think it could be like a 20-10, 24-10, easy, relatively Eagles victory. I'm not sure what the spread is, about 10 points, I think. Yeah, 10.5. I think they'll probably cover the spread this week. I think the Cardinals are kind of...
Swift's 4,800 in Fantasy Game Day this week. So, a bit of a drop from where he was last week. But he was still good for 15 points against the Giants last week. So,
yeah, and I think he's been tackled 6 times at the 1 yard line this year, and each one leads to a push touchdown. So maybe he just has a little get right in there as well. Maybe he gets a couple of those shorter. Well, he probably doesn't get the shorter touchdowns, but maybe he just gets a not tackled touchdowns. That regression eventually hits, whether it's this year or next. He'll probably start getting them. And yeah, the Cardinals on the road have been 6-2 hitting the under, and I just don't think they're going to have enough to keep this game close enough to make that number go high.
Yeah, I saw it. If you saw it on the New Heights, Travis and Jason Kelsey podcast, Kelsey mentioned that point around like he has to just sort of turn around and console Swift every time he gets tackled at the one. He's like, you know what's coming. So
I can imagine Jason Kelsey does care as well. He seemed like for as much as I love razzing the Eagles, I do really like Jason Kelsey.
Yeah. And Joe, last but not least, your under is Saints Buccaneers under 42.5.
Yeah, continue my Saints slight as I do every week. I just don't think I'm going to put that many points up. And I don't think Tampa are as well. I think it's going to be a close game again. I think this is it's a huge game for Tampa Bay. They could clinch the division here and probably end the Saints season. So I think it's going to be a really tight affair where I feel like these kind of teams are not going to want to lose a game. Even though I think Baker's been playing well, I think he's still got that when he's like the expectations there that, is he going to be the quarterback who's going to sling it down the field and win this game, or are they going to try and get, okay, just don't lose it because our defense is going to keep you in it. So I think it's going to be I think it's going to be both teams not getting more than 20 points, and it's going to be a really close affair between these two. And yeah, I think just the defenses are they're probably just as good as each other, and I think they're just going to keep it tight. And I think it's going to be squeaky bum times for both teams, and who basically probably gets the ball the last and kicks that field goal. I think it's going to be a close affair.
Yeah, I think tough on the fantasy game was because Rashad White's been a star all year, but his value now is just so high that it's becoming difficult to get to swallow getting him. He's 6,200 now in Fantasy Game Day, which is a lot. He's one of the top running backs, and if it is going to be, you do think it's going to be tight like that. And Evans is the same now, 6,200. So I don't know if you're prepared to put that much in there. Easier to play when they were around kind of 4,500, 5,000. Not so much there. So yeah,
little start to help with you there as well, Joe. Sorry. Saints in Tampa are 2-8, 2 on the over, 8 unders in the last 10.
Just robbed me of my stat. That's exactly the stat I was gonna reel out, but that's okay.
Well, we all have your back, Joe, is what we're saying.
Yeah.
I know. It feels like both of you guys are bringing up all the stats for my picks here, so feeling even more happy about it.
It's that time of year, isn't it? So,
I'll throw in an extra one for you as well. Why not? Ignoring last week, the last 6 Rams Saints away games in December have hit the over 5 out of 6 times, and the one was last Thursday. Don't do well on the road in December, hitting the over.
There you go, Joe. You got all the support from us this week. So reminder, Byron can clinch this week. He's 6 ahead of Joe with 8 picks to go. So, I mean, really, Joe, you need the sweep, and Byron's have a nightmare, don't you, to close it for next week? But we shall see. We've got our guest picks, so Brendon Booth will be joining us later on, and we'll get his 4 picks as well to talk through those. Right, let's rattle through the rest of the games, because there's plenty of games we haven't talked about. For week 17. We'll start with Thursday Night Football. We are... good point. The guest can overtake Joe this week. It's good being sat at the back. It's fine. Like the guest go ahead of you.
Enjoy the view.
Nice place to be. We'll start with Thursday. Yeah, Thursday Night Football. We're all in Cleveland Browns. Browns 7.5 point favourites at home to the Jets. Joe Flacco and I suppose the back of David Njoku's helmet are our cover stars this week. I suppose we're all thinking, the fun's going to continue with Joe Flacco.
Fun continues with Joe Flacco and Trevor Siemian versus this Browns defense. Road game, short week. Slight issue with Amari Cooper might not be playing. I mean, by the time anyone listens to this,
it's happened.
We'll know if Amari Cooper's played. We'll know if this is covered. But if Amari Cooper's out, it's a bit of a doubt. Be interesting because a lot of revenge game narratives here, but I do like the Elijah Moore genuine revenge game because he didn't leave the Jets on good terms. So especially if Amari's out, I'd be interested to see if Elijah Moore has a big game. I'd kind of like to see it.
Is Amari Cooper just knackered from his big game last week? Is that what?
I think there's a bit of it, yeah. Someone did post because that was his 5th 200-yard game. And after every single one of them, his fantasy stats are like 2 for 50 or 4 for 38 or something the following week. And it's like, does it just take a superhuman effort to hit? It probably does. So maybe he is just knackered, and especially on a short week. But yeah, obviously the Jets have a good defense as well. I think it's just too much on a short week to Cleveland have been in such good form.
Yeah. The Browns are 7-1 against the spread at home so far this season. Under's a good shout in this one. The under's gone 6-1-1 in those 8 home games so far this year. The Jets terrible on the road, 2-7-1 against the spread in the last 10 on the road. So yeah, the Jets are going to win this outright now, aren't they? Obviously, we're all on the Browns. Saturday night, so Monday Night Football on Saturday. The Lions 5.5 point underdogs at Dallas. That seems a bit of a big number.
I'm not sure though. I just think, for me, I think it's how the Cowboys have been performing at home. You still expect them to win, and I think I went with the Cowboys. It was a bit what Byron said, that it feels like last week was their season, and I think this week could be a bit of a downer where they could lose it, and then they might pick it up again and come back to reality. But I think this week's all about the Cowboys. I think Cowboys are the ones with the pressure on. They have to win this week, because I think if they lose again, then it's the alarm bells are going off, because you would have lost 3 in a row. Yeah. So I think it would be not good. And I think because Lions have already sewn up the division, and because they won last week, then I think they can have a bit more relaxed. And I still think that defense is not great. And I think this is a game for Dak to produce how he was early in the season, where he was doing the MVP numbers. And I think it's going to be a huge Dak and Lamb kind of game.
Yeah, I think they need it. They needed the Cowboys. And yeah, we talked about the other day. I think that the Lions winning the division was their sort of Everest, and just the way they were after it, I think it's just like, all right, you're done now. I think it's going to be tough. It's a real tough one to come after, I think, for them. Cowboys won 15 straight at home, 12-3 against the spread in those. The over in those 15 home win straight. I'm knackered. 15 straight home game run is 10-5, and over is 8-2 in the last 10 meetings between the Cowboys and the Lions. It's 53.5. It's a big number, but could be fun on Saturday night.
Yeah, it should be a good game.
Yeah.
I agree. Just CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. It's not going to be a fantasy game day one, but Lamb's going to be open all day, I think, the way the Lions are defending.
Yeah. Opportunity to try and cash in on some prop bets for CeeDee Lamb there for sure. Cardinals, Eagles, we're all on the Eagles. All the Eagles have struggled to cover at home, especially with the big spreads. Eagles are 4-5-1 against the spread in the last 10 at home, which I found quite surprising, just because you'd be expecting the Eagles to trounce teams at home, but not been the case. But I think I thought it was going to be the Giants last week, and it did look like that for a bit. Yeah. And then the Giants came back to cover, but I don't know. I think the Cardinals are done now. I think they could, like, I know the odds are that it's going to be, the Carolina pick to the Bears that ends up at number 1, but a funny feeling Carolina might win another game, and the Cardinals don't. So who knows? Could they swap? We'll see. I'm on the Falcons. I've got on the Falcons just because I've been on the wrong side of them the last couple of weeks, which has been odd. They let me down as a favourite. I backed the Colts against them last week and they won, so I'll probably be on the wrong side of it again. But yeah, again, I think just more there's the need, and that's what I've gone for a lot in these picks. The Falcons have the need to keep kind of their hopes alive and take it into week 18. So yeah, I also need a favour from the Saints to make that happen. But I think they've just got to do their bit, and that's where I think they'll win. Heineke give them a bit of a spark, and hopefully we'll see you two on the Bears. Talk to us about the Jags then. The Jags are 6.5 point favourites, which just seems like a big number the way they're playing at the minute at home to the Panthers.
Yeah, I didn't love this. It was the Panthers on the road that led me to it. Even if it's CJ Beathard, I think there's probably about a similar level of quarterback play in terms of expectation of what I expect of Bryce Young, not in his career, but how his season's gone. And if it is Trevor Lawrence, who isn't perfect and has had a very mixed season, certainly. It's been a pretty bad last few weeks. I just think the Jags, again, they need to win. They're at home, and it hasn't been a happy hunting ground at home necessarily, but I just think they've got enough to see it through. And I don't think the Panthers are, they've had the second win now. I just think that might have been kind of their Mount Everest.
Yeah, I think it's with Paul not picking against them. They've no longer got that on the bulletin board. So, the Panthers have got nothing to play for. So, yeah, it's all about, I think similar to Byron, I think the Jags have to win. I think they have to put a performance. Yeah, this is not a confident one. This is not one I would probably put any money on just because how the Jags have been playing. But, yeah, I just have to choose between. And, yeah, it feels like they need to turn it around. They should turn it around. But are they going to? That's a big question. It's just the Panthers, and I can't imagine them doing too much here. But I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be tight to that 6.5 line. But I just went with the home team who've got something to prove.
Panthers have lost all 8 road games straight up so far this year. So a better part I was thinking they might get one. And just how bad the Jaguars are.
Yeah, they might. DJ Chark revenge game, so maybe, but
and he had 2 touchdown game last week. It's pretty prevalent in the offense last week, so we'll see. But yeah, I just thought when I saw the number, Panthers. All on the Rams. Rams 5.5 point favorites going to the Giants. We talked about that already. Colts Raiders. We've touched on that. Me and Byron on the Colts. Joe on the Raiders. I just think the Colts need this one. They need it to take it into week 18. So yeah, and I think they put a dud performance in last week, so I'm going for that. They'll bounce back this week. Fingers crossed. All on the Ravens. This is probably the best game of the week, right? Yeah. So let's talk about this a little bit more. Miami 3-point underdogs on the road against the Ravens in Baltimore. Baltimore could take a huge step to securing that number 1 seed this week. It's done, right? They win it, it's done. Yeah, so not a huge step, the huge step. I just don't think the Ravens want it. You just don't want it to go down to week 18 against the Steelers, do you? Who've already beaten you.
No, and winning's a good habit. I was kind of surprised this was only 3 points. Because I was really thinking I might back Miami this week, and I think it's 3 points. I'm like, oh, this is a pretty easy decision. I'll just go with Baltimore. Did we miss what they've done to the 49ers last week? Feels a bit like a trap game because when we all back the same thing, and feels like a pretty confident one to me. Jalen Waddle's going to be missing the game for the Dolphins. Dolphins feels like every week the raw line is halfway there, halfway not. I don't know. It just feels like I'm going to feel stupid for saying it, I guess, but it feels like a pretty simple pick to me. I don't really have much doubt about it.
Yeah, I just worry that again, they've it doesn't always happen, but they've beat the 49ers where they've that big high, and now they've got to try and keep it at that level.
Yeah.
And this will determine what kind of team it is, because they're also a team who have lost. They should really be 15-0 when you look at the games they've actually lost. And it's just going to be one of them games where you just suddenly like, how the hell have they lost this kind of game after beating the 49ers? And it's just that kind of performance where
come back to earth a bit.
Yeah, and even like against the 49ers, they actually smashed by the end, and they got the 3 or 4 turnovers, but they were only like up by 4 half-time, and it's still whether that kind of team who can just constantly beat a team. I think they'll beat Dolphins. I think being in Baltimore gives them that advantage. That's why I chose. I think if it was flipped and it was in Miami, I think it would be a lot closer, and I think I would have struggled more who to pick. But yeah, I just have confidence in their level, and a bit disappointed this is just on the early games as well. It's like there's 10 early games this week compared to 3 late games.
What are the NFL doing? 10-3.
Yeah.
Why couldn't?
It's like, who's watching any of them late games? Like there's some interesting ones, but there's no like, oh, I can't wait to watch Pittsburgh or Seattle. You know what I mean? It's
Chargers, Broncos, Eastern State, Garrett Stidham.
Yeah. It would have been Bengals Chiefs, wouldn't it? That was like the huge, as one of the big, when the schedule was announced, Bengals Chiefs week 17, that's going to have so much on the line. And then obviously the way it's worked out, just the way the season's gone, not been the case. But yeah, the 10-3 split, and we've said it before when we've had 9-3 splits and stuff. It's just ludicrous. Just stick one more game.
Yeah.
Just the 3 in the late window is awful because they all just tend to be just like bad games as well. So yeah. Ravens, interesting one. This one, just back to the game. So in the last 10 at home versus AFC opponents, the Ravens are 2-7-1 against the spread. I think this might just end up being a really close game. I think, and I think this is another one. Probably one can Miami hang with Baltimore. And if they can, that's a huge tick for them heading into the postseason. Whether they win or not, can they hang? Because I think maybe that one against the Cowboys last week didn't maybe. I didn't think it actually told us anything that we need, about the Dolphins because just the Cowboys were that bad. Like the Ravens here, but I don't know. I think this could be an interesting one. And again, for the purposes of making Week 18 as exciting as possible, we all want Miami to win here, right? No?
I want no one in the to lose.
No. Either way, I suppose either way we get, I think, potentially exciting outcome, don't we? So do we want the Dolphins-Bills division playoff game, in essence, or Ravens? That'd be the one that we want, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because whoever wins gets it. Well, either one, like the Miami could win, but then the Ravens could win, and it's just like that.
Yeah. Cool. Any particular, again, because with just being the nature of that game, any particular fantasy game day shouts for that one? Because obviously we've got 13 games in the chamber for fantasy game day this week.
Probably not, truthfully. I struggle to say pay up Tyreek Hill because obviously he's going to get targeted with Jalen Waddle being out, but Baltimore know that. And I just kind of worry that it might be a game where, that Baltimore defense has really played well all season. Probably playing the best defense in football, to be fair, over the entire season. I kind of worry that Tua might have a weaker game than we expect. And I think, we'll see how he does cope with. I think he might get a bit frazzled, truthfully. Mike McDaniel will try and keep him clean and keep him open. Nice open players. But I don't know. I do worry with Jalen Waddle being out and against such a good team that, like I say, I have no issue picking Baltimore here. But I don't want to pick Gus Edwards, who would be the, obvious call, I think, when you pick Baltimore to win.
I suppose Mostert could be one, but he's banged up as well, and he's 6,400. So, 21 touchdowns for him on the year. So, yeah. Could be one to shout out. I think this one could be one to target, the Buffalo Bills. 13-point favourites at home to the New England Patriots. We've talked on this about already, but I think Josh Allen could be worth paying up for that we've talked about already. Joe,
I'll just say I've gone Patriots. I think 13's a big number, and I think we've watched Buffalo all year, and they can't beat bad teams. Well, they've already lost the Patriots this year. But did they lose them? Yeah, they lost them, didn't they? Yeah, struggle with the Chargers, struggle with the Giants. I think it's going to be that kind of game where it has Bill and I think Bills absolutely destroyed the Patriots. I think it was either last year or the year before, in 3 games, because I think they're in the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to play that kind of defense where they're going to challenge Josh Allen to be special, to, do something what he shouldn't do. And I think he relishes that challenge and goes for it. And obviously it hits sometimes, but it misses, probably 50-50. So I think it's going to be a tight game. I think it's that in division. I think the Bills are still going to win, but I think it's going to be they've only won by 5 points and it was another squeaker by the Bills to set up next week. So I thought 13 was just way too many. It could easily be they're winning by 18, and then the Patriots just gets a nothing touchdown at the end. Just because I don't think the Bills defense are that scary on that side, and Patriots and Bailey Zappi's played better in the last few weeks than earlier on. So I think it's going to be a tight game, and I think it's going to be a low scoring one too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's move on. We're all on the Bucs. Unanimous then. The Bucs get the NFC South.
I'm a little nervy about this one, though, I must say. Just because it feels like the Bucs have been running so hot. I was really tempted to put the Saints in this week. I've gone with the Bucs. I won't, pick down too much. It's just one that made me real nervous. I think the Saints could just throw a spanner in the works somehow.
Yes, I think Danny Dennis Allen's coaching for his life, isn't it? Because surely it goes. So, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I just think the Bucs have just been taking care of business, getting the job done. And we'll mention it, they've got the guys that can make the plays. Yeah.
Well, you see NFC South. I think that's what I worry about as well. It's very NFC South for Tampa Bay to lose here, and then it goes down to the last game where they've got to be the Panthers to get in.
Yeah. I think they'll get it.
And then the Falcons win the playoffs. It'd be like that kind of.
Nothing will surprise me.
Yeah, we all would rather see Baker, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. Yeah.
Beating the Cowboys.
Yeah, I feel it'd be a much tougher proposition for the Cowboys going to Tampa this year than it was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Joe, you mentioned you want to go back one. Bills, Patriots from Fantasy Game Day shouts?
Oh, sorry. I meant some previous games, and I was on about the certainly the Rams. I think I would be happy to go a few of the Rams players to chuck some in the game day fantasy. I
think Kyron Williams would probably be a shout for captain this week. 7,400, which is his biggest price as he's been. But obviously,
what's Stafford? I'm just wondering,
Stafford
a lot more
quarterback picks. I think he's like 6 or 1, 2. He's the 7th quarterback, 6,400. So sort of in that mid tier. I suppose if you do it, you've got to tie one of them up. You've got to tie it up with Nakua or Cup as well, and you just need to fall on the right side of which one's going to have the game, because it's not both. So Nakua's 5'4" and Cup's 5'8".
And where's Jalen Hurts in that quarterback list?
Top of the tree, 8,200.
Okay. I didn't think he would be just because but I'm guessing he just gets the touchdowns all the time. So just cute.
Free 6 points every week for that touch push.
Yeah.
Certainly helps.
Yeah. Joel, we'll probably continue with the Fantasy Game Day shout-outs now. Niners are 13-point favourites on the road against the Commanders. I almost took the Commanders here because, again, just 13 points at home is a lot. But I think they had their kind of last surge in the second half last week against the Jets with Jacoby Brissett. And, this one, the Niners are going to be raring to go to try and just make up for last week. This one could be bad. Who should we be going for? Because the Niners are banged up as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's banged up exactly. The O-line, I think, is like one big bang up. I don't know if you've got insight on like any of the skill players, but
yeah, I think Debo he wasn't fully practicing, but they expect him to play. I think it was like a neck injury. But I think everyone else, I think McCaffrey, Purdy, everyone was training. I think Williams was limited practice as well, so it looks like he'll be playing, and a few others. So I would say Debo again, but I have to see how, because it was just more just thinking top of my head how Washington, how he was Brees felt like he was catching in the backfield and they were just letting him run. So I think that could be, Debo, McCaffrey, that kind of 1-2 punch where it's that rather than the downfield ball. But, I feel like Washington's given up kind of. I think if they'd sacked Ron Rivera, then I would be a bit more worried that there'd be a bump and there'll be the whole, playing for the new interim coach and all that kind of thing. But it feels like they've, some of the mistakes they were making last week, like the fumbles, just terrible play. I would have liked if Howell was playing to throw a few interceptions instead of Jacoby Brissett. But still confident that the 49ers will win. And I think, like you said, Paul, they got something to prove. I think Purdy's got something to prove. So I think it's going to be 4 or 5 kind of touchdown kind of game where he's slinging it around the field, getting people involved. I'd like to see him get Ayuk more involved. I think he's had a few big catches, but he hasn't scored a touchdown in a while. So I think they might also target Ayuk quite a bit. But, it's like pick your poison in that. You could go McCaffrey, Kittle, Debo, Ayuk. Yeah, any of them, to be honest. I think they're going to score, even getting Purdy in there. Because I'm like, where's Purdy on the list? Because obviously how last week went.
Just covering them all, I suppose. So you've got McCaffrey as a top, unsurprisingly, 8-6. Debo 7,200 now. So he's come out of being kind of like mid-5 1,000 up to 6 and up to 7. So it's going to be real expensive. You can't have both, really. You have to choose. Ayuk's dropped, though, to 5'8", so potentially some value there. And then Purdy is 6'6", so he's the sixth highest priced quarterback.
I think Ayuk's absolute smash there.
Yeah.
I mean, for all Deebo Samuel in the last 6 weeks of fantasy football has been the number 1 wide receiver in PPR. Brandon Ayuk has been number 12. So it's not like, he has been worse than Deebo, but like he's been better than basically every other wide receiver in football. Washington have given up in 15 weeks. They've given up 17 top 24 wide receiver performances. And they've also given up the most quarterback top 12 performances. They've given up 12 in 15 weeks. I kind of love Purdy and Ayuk here. I know I already shouted out somebody, Josh Allen, as a pay-up option, but Purdy and Ayuk, I think, is really tempting, to be fair.
Yeah, and the Niners as well, that's not the fact. Just need to get this done, don't they? So they've got the tiebreaker over Philly, but, Philly are going to win the last 2 games, so the Niners need to win the last 2 games as well.
Yeah, and I think in terms of a San Fran thing, you'd want to see Sam Howell, but in terms of like Fantasy Game Day and getting points on, I want to see Jacoby Brissett because it might make the 13 points more in doubt, but it probably increases the chances of being a back and forth game because Jacoby Brissett can play quarterback in the league and isn't just going to take sacks all day.
It's a high over. It's 49.5 the line, which is huge. And I don't know, would you take McLaurin or Rodriguez again?
I think Rodriguez is injured again, so I think it is just Antonio Gibson. Jonathan Williams is even injured.
He's out, actually. I've just seen,
Yeah, so I think my only player would maybe be like Curtis Samuel or maybe Logan Thomas.
Yeah.
But Terry McLaurin's been so inconsistent, and I'm guessing he's at a higher price point than Curtis Samuel.
Yeah.
But yeah, Samuel or Logan Thomas I'd probably be tempted by, presuming they're at a lower price point.
Yeah, Thomas v tight end, 2,400, and that then could then free up for splurging on a Debo or a CMC. Let's move on to Titans at Texans in a game the Texans really need if they're going to extend their hopes into week 18. Yeah, sorry. Into week 18. You two have gone the Texans minus the 5. Again, 5 just seems a lot big. Both these teams tend to be in really tight games.
Yeah, I've just gone with the need to have it. CJ Stroud's back. Not too much science to it, I must say. I haven't even looked at what their record is at 5-point spreads. But again, I think the Titans probably had their big almost win last week as their final hurrah with Henry and Tannehill. I feel like the season's kind of gone for them now. And yeah, Texans need to win. They're at home. CJ Stroud's back.
Yeah. Titans have won 4 in a row in Houston. I just like, whether they don't win the game or not, but even when the Texans were winning with CJ Stroud earlier in the season, they were all tight games.
Yeah.
Came by a couple of points. So I just like the 5 and to be another tight game, and Texans may win, but I like Titans to cover. Steelers, we've talked about this one. I'm all back in on the Mike Tomlin as an underdog after last week. You two on the Seahawks in this one?
Yeah, it's because you've gone for the Steelers, so I just thought, well, that's a Seahawks win. So, no, I'm just more confident the Seahawks being at home. 3.5's not that big. I think if it was 5, similar to the Titans game, I may have gone Steelers, but I trust Seahawks playing in their stadium. Rudolph, is a backup. There's a reason he's a backup and he's playing in one of the loudest stadiums in the league. Is he going to have that same kind of production? I'm not quite sure. And you need big games from the defense again, which they can easily do, but we've seen over the years that there's not many teams whose defenses play well every single week and are consistent and winning their games. So I'd rather go with the team who's got the better offense, and that's the Seahawks, and like being 3.5 points. And they need to win this as well. Well, I think let's say that Steelers do as well, but yeah, I just trust the Seahawks a bit more at home.
Seahawks keep it in their own hands with a win. Take it to week 18 against the Cardinals, right? With a win,
Yep.
And might get to a point they don't need to win. Other results may dictate that they don't need to win that game. So huge this one. And same for the Steelers. The Steelers are 8-7 in that. There's 4 8-7 teams: Colts, Texans, Bengals, Steelers. The Colts hold that 7 seed in the AFC at the minute. So again, Steelers need it to force it into next week. Chiefs. I've gone with the Chiefs. I think we are going to get a bounce back this week. I keep saying we're going to get one. There's going to be one good game for the Chiefs. It can't get any worse than it did last week. That was the absolute pits for this offense last week. So I think they're going to bounce back. I think Jake Brown is going to have some problems again and difficulties, and maybe we start to see some signs of life in that Chiefs defense that seems to have abandoned them as well. But I just think they're going to find a way to just win the game. And yeah, 7 points. I know it's a lot with the way the Chiefs are at the minute, but yeah, just fancying the Chiefs to get that done, and maybe we might be able to talk about, maybe the Chiefs will be dangerous. They won't be, but Chargers Broncos. Chargers 3.5 point underdogs. I just have to take some underdogs this week. If we see this, we've only got 2 road favourites this week in the Rams and the Niners. And not all these home teams are going to win and cover. So, yeah, that was kind of my logic. And they've made the change to Jared Stidham.
I was going to say, yeah, the Sunday late games you've gone against both me and Byron. So it's huge for the competition as well.
Yeah, but I just think that change to Jared Stidham as well, and not just the way it's been handled and how it's come about. And it's just not pretty, is it, in Denver?
No, the last thing you'd call it is pretty. I'm not necessarily sure it's a huge negative, though. I don't think Jared Stidham's a good quarterback at all. But they did go and pay him when they brought him in the first place, which implies that they had some kind of faith in him. He didn't play terrible in his 2 games last year in the Oakland for the Raiders. I don't know. I just think the Broncos are a better team, and it's at Denver. Chargers had their close run game last week. That was kind of their new coach bounce, I think. I don't have a huge take on it, I must say, but the home team, and I think Denver are a more competent team.
Fair. Sunday Night Football, Packers, Vikings. I've gone the Packers in this, so I know the Vikings need, they both need it, don't they? But at 2, I think it's going to be real close. Yeah, I'd just like the Packers to just arrest the slide a little bit.
Yeah, this was one I struggled with. I went the Vikings, you and Joe went Packers. I just think that defense of the Packers, it just, like I said, they're just so bad. And that Jair Alexander's out this week for that incredible suspension of demanding he takes a coin toss. And for all his faults, he's a good cornerback, Jair Alexander. They're on to Jaron Hall as the QB in Minnesota, but it just feels like they've put anybody there. And I also think, again, Brian Flores, Jordan Love's had a great season relative to expectations, but again, no Christian Watson, no Wicks, it looks like this week. I just think Flores is going to kind of scramble him a little bit. Primetime game in Minnesota. I just think, Vikings are probably going to sneak it. Maybe it is a 1-point win and it ends up being a thing, could be a push. Tough game to call, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully we get a good one, since the Sunday Night Football games have been a bit of a dud. This season, we need just some exciting games to finish off the year. Interesting one for Thursday Night Football, and Amari Cooper confirmed as out as the inactives have just come in. Oof, does that change 7.5?
I think it'll bring the line down.
Fantasy.
Your fantasy football or just a vision you've been having?
No, my fantasy football.
Oh, okay, yeah. Best to check. DK have it as 7 now, but...
Yeah, it's still 7.5 about 365. Joe, what are you playing for in fantasy football? Like 8th and 9th? Is that where you're at?
Fifth position. Come on, Paul. Give me some credit.
Yeah, I'm in the 3rd place game, sadly. My playoffs didn't go well. That's us done. Chaps, 50 minutes. Good work. Excellent. So we're going to finish off this week's episode with a returning guest. Difficult to get guests in between Christmas and New Year. So we've got Brendon Booth back. Big Raiders guy, big fantasy football guy that we'll talk about. So we'll have a big focus on that for the rest of the episodes. But Brendan's going to take part in our FourFold challenge. So we'll transition over to me and a big warm welcome to Brendon.
Yeah, I'm good.
Finishing us off this week is we've got our special guest picker, Brendon Booth, returning picker, our first two-time picker. Brendon, welcome back to the show. Pleasure to have you, and Merry Christmas. Hope you've had a great time.
Thank you so much. It's good to be back.
Good. Well, thanks for answering the call and coming on, and loving the background. You've got the Manchester United shirts in the background. Great,
yes, sir.
Great win on Boxing Day for Man United.
Yes.
A big one coming from 2-0 down against Aston Villa. So that was a very, very happy Boxing Day for sure.
It was a great comeback, incredible performance by Garnacho, who I want to nominate as the worst haircut in professional sports. But apart from that, also Rasmus Højlund getting his first goal in 14, 15 games, something like that. So it was a great Boxing Day. I'm on a heater. Christmas was a great day. Boxing Day was a great day. I'm honored to be welcomed back as a multiple-time guest. That's awesome. And yeah, it's been good.
We'll talk the Raiders as well, and you'll get the chance to dance all over the Chiefs in a second. But this is our guest picker segment presented by Fantasy Gameday. If you've not joined Fantasy Gameday yet, if you're a fan of the NFL in the UK, you're a fan of daily fantasy sports, fan of any sort of fantasy football, come get involved. And you get to enter your team, watch the points roll in, and win cash prizes. It's 20% of the entries each week get a cash prize. The winners have been walking away with over £100, which is fantastic for the price it is, £7.50 entry. As a listener or viewer of Good Teams and Great Teams cover, you can get yourself a free game. So once you've entered for the first time, you need to use promo code COVER, all in capital letters, and you'll get yourself a free game. So it's a 2-for-1 deal, 2 chances to win money instead of one. So you've got the last couple of weeks. I'm not sure what the plans for Gurmeet and the guys are for the playoffs, but certainly you've got week 17 and week 18 to go. Chance to win some money. And we're going to talk a little bit of fantasy sports with fantasy football, with Brendon. Well, Brendon, you've been on before, so some of the guys may know where to follow you, but just in case we've got anybody who didn't catch you the first time, where can we follow you, and what shows have you got and content have you got coming up?
So the main thing is at BigBonedFFB on Twitter. That links to all of my stuff. I have a YouTube channel, The Fantasy Burn. I do podcasts on that, live streams and recorded interviews. And then I write for DynastyProsFootball.com. Every Saturday, our Starts and Sits show drop. We're going to be transitioning into the off season. Tonight's our last show. Our last recording for the fantasy season, and then we start getting into the rookie drafts and all of the prognostication for next year's dynasties. And I'm a senior analyst at the news desk for playerprofiler.com. Some of the best research tools provided. If you go to playerprofiler.com and look up some of their packages, they've got calculators and injury reports and just a whole plethora of stuff, plus a lot of stuff coming in the new year to look out for. So right now is a good time to get in, and it's just a real comprehensive website. And so I do videos, tweeting, and writing on the player profiles for Player Profiler News Desk.
Cool, good stuff. Well, let's get into that fantasy stuff then, fantasy. So I say for most leagues this week 17 will be kind of the final week, if it's not already, for depending on your formats. But let's look ahead from a fantasy football perspective, because we talked a little bit about end of season last time you were on, which was in week 14. You mentioned there about some of the stuff about the rookie drafts coming up. So look, we know some of the big names that are going to be hugely popular and sought after. Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. Who should we be looking out for, and who do you think, again, from this rookie class of 2024 in kind of dynasty and keeper leagues, who should we be keeping an eye out for that might not necessarily be getting the attention of a Williams or a Harrison?
So some of your value picks are going to be a lot. There's a ton of wide receivers coming out. This is one of the deepest wide receiver classes that I've ever seen. Jalen McMillan is the wide receiver 2 for the University of Washington, right behind Rome Odunze. But at times that they've played together, McMillan has outplayed him. Odunze has more hype. But if you're looking for some value, maybe in the second round of your rookie draft, Jalen McMillan is one to watch. J.J. McCarthy is a really interesting quarterback coming out of Michigan. He's not in the top top 4 or 5 conversation, but he could earn a job pretty quickly.
Just
and
on
then
JJ McCarthy, Brendon, just a quick one. Obviously, Michigan are in the college football playoff, and there's a huge spotlight on Michigan. They've, 2 years in a row been beating that semifinal game. The noise around everything that's been going on, the sign stealing stuff that's been going on.
Yeah.
How far could JJ McCarthy move up if he has 2 great performances and Michigan win the national championship?
I think when you're talking about the top 3 to 4, there's not going to be any movement. I think it's pretty locked in. Caleb Williams and Drake May are the top 2. Jaden Daniels is making some noise to try and get in there. Michael Penix Jr. is slightly above, and we'll see how he does in the playoff as well. So I think McCarthy is pretty much locked in. The top 5 is pretty much locked in. There's not going to be a whole lot of room for movement with combine numbers and things like that. But if he does move up, then he still doesn't. He might be ranked higher in some places, but he's still not going to have the hype that some of the other guys do. And he's just a really solid player. So keep an eye out for him later in your drafts.
Yeah, potentially some value for catches on somewhere. We've seen, the need for quarterbacks in, I'm sure, there's not many people who have got through their fantasy season without taking a hit at quarterback, because we've seen so many of the starting guys go down. Yeah. So difficult.
And I don't think that situation is going to get much better in the NFL. I think if anything changes, it's only going to be the defenders getting bigger and faster, and guys putting on more muscle and having more soft tissue injuries. So depth is going to be the key going forward. There were people in the preseason drafts who were starting to make noise about Jamar Chase over Justin Jefferson. And while that played out over the course of the season because of Jefferson's injury, Chase went down in the playoffs. So you need to have that depth. And I think the first 2 rounds are not quite as important as they used to be. You're not going to have longevity from guys. You're not going to have guys who are going through the whole season. You're going to see a lot of injuries coming in the next few years. So,
yeah, certainly been the trend. And, it's been to so many superstars that we say in the NFL, which is a shame, but that's kind of the way it goes. And you need to build to adapt for that. Back to the guys then in the league already. We talked a little bit about some of the rookies to keep an eye out for then. Who are the people that maybe have had a bit of a quieter 2023, or maybe just a little bit of success in 2023 that we can expect to make a leap from a fantasy perspective in 2024 that we can maybe still go get for our dynasty teams, or that we can make a deal for?
One of the things is that it's really hard to jump into the top 24 if you haven't been there before, kind of thing. So you really want to be looking at guys who are making an impact early, like Jordan Addison. He's definitely one that would be worth giving up a package for. But then you have guys who came out and they were highly rated for a reason, like Jackson Smith and Jigba. He hasn't gotten quite the opportunity yet, but he has flashed his skill. I think some of those guys with more of the hype, I'm a value player. So I tend to look at, so next year, one of the things that I target a lot is 3rd-year wide receiver breakouts, especially from guys who had a lot of talent coming out and just never got it together for whatever reason. And my number 1 next year is going to be Treylon Burks. He was highly touted as a rookie, went through some injury issues, was ready to come out as the number 1 in Tennessee, and they went and got DeAndre Hopkins, and then he continued with some injuries. If he can put together a full healthy season as a 3rd-year breakout, it reminds me a lot of Nico Collins. George Pickens is another one. I think George Pickens is probably one of the more talented wide receivers in the NFL, and just hasn't been in a situation where he can showcase that talent. Like, put him on the Vikings and see what he does with Kirk Cousins versus what Jefferson is doing. I think they're pretty similar. So George Pickens is another one, 3rd-year breakout that I'm looking at. Drake London is another one if Atlanta gets a competent quarterback in there. And then 2nd-year running backs. a lot of those guys, Zamir White was a second-year running back this year, and you saw what he did. So a lot of the guys that came out this year that really didn't get a whole lot of play, like Roshan Johnson, Kendre Miller, I think looking for those guys to you want to buy them low at this point because they're going to get an opportunity at some point, and when they do, they're going to break big.
Yeah, and I think you a great point, especially you make your point about Burks and Tennessee, and I think one that's real complementary to that is similar situations. What's happened at the wide receiver position for them is probably going to happen at running back. Ty Spears, because you think that's probably going to be the end of Derrick Henry in Tennessee, and in flashes, Ty Spears has shown what he can do, and anybody that watched him at Tulane, the guy's electric, and hopefully you'll see that transition to the NFL. But he's been good in flashes this year, so it'll be interesting to see with more touches and more opportunity what he could do in Tennessee. And that would be a whole move for the Titans, right? Because that's a complete change in the way that they play. But that could be interesting. Cool.
Devon Achane is another one. If Mostert somehow starts to lose a step and Achane takes over in that backfield, he's a smaller guy. He's going to deal with you. Again, you want depth because he's going to deal with injuries throughout his career. I think Spears is too. He's been used on a limited basis, so he's not on that level. But if those guys can put in some work, they're going to spike games for you. So look for them in best ball, use them as depth pieces to be able to slot in if their number ones get hurt, things like that.
Yeah. Cool, good stuff. And you mentioned there, obviously, why in your list there of kind of the running back breakouts. Huge game on Christmas Day, and the Raiders, your Las Vegas Raiders, had a huge win in Kansas, in Arrowhead against the Chiefs. First of all, how was that watching that game on Christmas Day?
I was in a home with a whole bunch of people that didn't watch football. So I was watching it on my phone, sitting at a computer desk with no sound on and containing my excitement and glee and cheering, and it was very muted. I've watched the game over twice since then, and it was such a beautiful game plan. The defense was absolutely locked in. They did some pregame stuff that Anthony Pierce had put together where each day they practiced their game plan for a different quarter, and there was a different film that was oriented toward what their theme was for that quarter. And it was basically come out from the gate, just balls out, and then keep that energy and intensity going the whole entire game. And they absolutely did that. And that's coming off the drubbing of the Chargers that they did, which is another divisional game. So the last few weeks for in Raiders camp has been absolutely a blessing.
Yeah, and I mean the Raiders are now, thinking about where they were when they fired Josh McDaniels. Josh McDaniels a few weeks ago. They're now one game below 500, 7-8.
Right.
I mean, what a job Antonio Pierce has done.
Incredible.
We saw Rich Bisaccia, and we talked about this last time a little bit. Rich Bisaccia do it maybe a similar job because obviously the Raiders got to the postseason. But what does Mark Davis do? Is it the right thing? Do you think as a Raiders follower, does Antonio Pierce just get the job, or is it the right thing to do for Mark Davis to go see who's out there? You have to go through the process because that's what you have to do in the NFL. But
right,
where you sat with it now, because surely it is Antonio Pierce's job.
He made the statement in the press conference, my resume is on the grass. And you can't put it any more plainly than that. He has come in and he has taken a franchise that was mishandled, and he has done things the right way. And he has put together a team that over the last few weeks has been one of the best defensive teams in the NFL. They might have a situation at quarterback where Aiden O'Connell could stand to get a little bit better, but they didn't need him. Similar to the Patriots-Bills game a couple years ago where it was windy and Belichick said, I'm not throwing the ball at all. Well, the Raiders didn't need to complete any passes. They held it down. So I think he has won the job. Publicly, if they beat the Colts this weekend, he will get the job. That'll put him at 500. They'll likely beat the Broncos and somehow make it into the playoffs. Week 4, 5, 6, we were just, the sky was falling. This organization was absolutely terrible. And the turnaround, they're 4-3 since he took over. He's got a winning record with it after taking over a team that had a losing record. So there's no more proof than that Mark Davis should need. There are two different kinds of coaches in the NFL. There are schematic guys and there are leaders, and he's a leader. Mike McDaniel is a different story. He's both. So I guess there's three types of coaches. But you have a guy who knows the game like Mike Vrabel, and he's successful and he's a leader of men. And then you have the geniuses. And how did that work out for Josh McDaniels? So I think Antonio Pierce as a head coach, as a leader, if he keeps the offensive coordinator and the defensive coordinator that have done a stand-up job, the system is in place for them to be a successful franchise moving forward with the pieces that they have now, and they don't need to go outside to get them.
Yeah, and just a great turnaround. And to be in this position, 2 games to go, and they've still got a chance of getting in the postseason.
And 2 years ago, we were in a very similar position. Carr needed to go in and beat Indy, and he did that. And then they needed to beat Jacksonville, and they did that. So having to take out the Colts to get to the playoffs has become a thing for us. And hopefully we'll be able to take care of that this weekend.
Yeah. They are, I think it's 3.5 point underdogs. I think
3.5.
3.5 point underdogs. But they've got a real good record we've just discussed this in the other recording, but they've got a real good record in Indianapolis. I think they're 6-1 against the spread all time in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. So real good opportunity. And Indianapolis were horrible last week against Atlanta.
And we'll just call that a 4-for-4 spoiler alert.
Absolutely. But I love the Raiders' chances. And then, then there's so many things in play in week 18 with who, whatever happens, across the other games this week. So could be a crazy finish, and somehow the Raiders sneak in, which from where they were, midway point of the season.
And God forbid the Chiefs lose 2 in a row and the Raiders win the division.
The Chiefs look awful at the minute, and what a way for that record of the Chiefs. 7 years in a row, 8 years in a row, 7 years in a row that they've won the West.
Their defense is still tough, but that offense needs a spark somewhere.
Yeah, painful viewing for the Chiefs on offense.
My partner at DynastyProsFootball.com that I do the weekend warm-up show with, I'm going on with him in a couple hours, and he's a Chiefs fan, and I'm a Raiders fan. Nice. So he got me once earlier. Tonight is my time to shine.
Nice, but it was a huge collective effort on the defense. Well, we talk a lot, and rightly so, we talk a lot about Max Crosby. I think it was the defensive front as a whole that just dominated the Chiefs, and it was a great effort. So yes, you have fun with that in a couple of hours on your record.
Yeah,
cool. Let's head into our FourFold challenge to finish this part of the show and the episode off. So Brendon, you did our FourFold challenge a few weeks ago, so you know the drill. It's one favorite, one underdog, one over, one under from the week 17 slate, and fingers crossed you can go 4-0. Start us off with, Brendon, your favorite. Who are you liking as your favorite this week?
My favorite this week is going to be the Los Angeles Rams against the New York Giants. I think their offense is humming. Kyron Williams is an absolute beast. I was ranking wide receivers this week. Demarcus Robinson, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp are all in the top 10 in fantasy points per game over the last 4 weeks. They are a juggernaut at this point, and it's going to be a bloodbath in New York.
Yeah, I think you won't be surprised to find out a couple of the guys are also on the Rams -5.5, a popular choice this week as a favorite, I think, and rightly so. And the Rams. I think if the Rams Rams win this week, that it's pretty much done. It would take a lot for them to not make the playoffs if they get the job done this week.
Yeah, and that's a great story too.
Yeah, again, I think there was a lot of hope for the Rams at the start of the season, for kicking the can down the road all these years to get that championship win. But, possibly you could argue McVay's best job, I think, of coaching job so far, because I think, with getting a lot out of so little, but you've seen kind of the guy, again, it's been Stafford, the Puka Nacua, 5th round draft pick, just incredible. What a season he's had. Any other year, he's Offensive Rookie of the Year. any other year. I think CJ Stroud is
right.
I don't think, but any other year it's Puka Nacua with what he's done. And Kyron Williams, they really missed him when he was out injured, but he's come back from that ankle injury and been a juggernaut again. I think in his 5 games back, he's gone over 100 yards on the ground 4 times in those 5 games. So a great play for your potential daily fantasy games, fantasy game day. Kyron Williams will be a great option. But yeah, I like that one. Rams -5.5. The number just seemed a little bit too small. I thought it might have been 7.5, 8, maybe more, just because of where those two teams are. But yeah, 5.5.
Especially with the news that Tyrod Taylor was taken over for Tommy DeVito. Sorry, I don't know if that's a global nickname or not.
Yeah.
Okay. But a transition at quarterback is not necessarily a great thing, and they're hurting. They're hurting. Wan'Dale Robinson is their wide receiver 1, and he is iffy to finish a game. Darren Waller is going to be back, but what kind of chemistry does he have with Tyrod Taylor at this point? So there's too many question marks, and the Rams have been playing too well, and so that number stood out to me.
Yeah. And the Rams, talk about, we fully expect them now to get what's needed to be done to be in the postseason. They're going to be a tough out in the playoffs, a real tough out. They could be one that they could be a team that causes the upsets. As it stands right now, you'd have Matthew Stafford going back to Detroit to play the Lions in the wild card round of the playoffs.
Yeah, and at this point, if you look at the playoff situation, there's not an NFC team I would want to play. You have teams that are down like the Cowboys and the Eagles, and even the 49ers you could say are kind of down after Brock Purdy's performance. But would you want your NFC team to go up against any of those guys? And then you have the Lions, and then you have the Rams potentially. I mean, the Buccaneers, if they win the division, you want to play that defense with the way Baker Mayfield's throwing the ball? There aren't a lot of playoff situations in the NFC that are so – there's no favorite that's just that anybody can't beat at this point. So the parity is there, and everybody is scary.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I certainly wouldn't want to face that Rams team on wildcard weekend. So yeah,
no,
a real rough one. But yeah, love that as your favourite choice. Who's your underdog then? Which one of the dogs is going to bite this week?
I think you know. I'm going with the Raiders +3.5 in Indy. They're on carpet. They're indoors. The team is primed. They're playing at a level that they haven't. Their defense hasn't played at this level consecutively in consecutive weeks since Khalil Mack was there in 2016. They are absolutely ready for this. They're fully behind Antonio Pierce. He's got them ready to go, and I love that line. It's 4 points, easy victory.
Nice. Raiders +3.5. Love it. And take it to week 18, see what happens. Who knows? Where are the points going to be, or where do you think the over's going to hit? Let's go with your over next. Brendan,
okay.
Where do you fancy the points to be?
The one that stood out to me was Chargers Broncos. I think Easton Stick is a little bit slept on. He has the ability to sling the ball around. If he can get Austin Eckler out into space, they can do a lot. The Broncos' run defense isn't that great, and even Josh Kelly could have a big game. The Broncos, they can score points. It's not like they can't. And a line of 37, the Broncos put up 17. The Chargers put up 20. You're breaking that line already. So I see that as super, super low.
Cool. That's just one we've got. The 37.5. Is that all right? Still, just
half? Yeah.
Cool. Still take the half. Yeah. Cool. You need 38 anyway, I guess. So yeah, Chargers Broncos. Yeah, and they obviously changed to Jared Stidham this week. That's messy. That whole Broncos situation messy. Just the way it's been handled. It's come out this week around. They've been talking to Russell Wilson about this for a number of weeks. About kind of change your contract or we'll sit you sort of thing. So yeah, just not a good way to end after turning around what was such a horrible start to the season into something quite promising. And then this is the way we're finishing off. So yeah.
I did write up Russell Wilson before the season started in one of my dynasty dilemmas, and one of the things that I pointed out was the fact that he's not part of Sean Payton's regime, and it would be very easy for them to move on from him towards the end of the year, which makes him not a great buy in dynasty. He's older, he's well past his prime. His best days were in Seattle, and now he's got a coach who is looking at him with declining play and a huge contract. This move, and ironically, it's Stidham again, with the veteran contract that they're trying to avoid the injury payout to. Stidham gets the job again, and he didn't play too bad last year with the Raiders at the end of the season after Carr was unceremoniously booted out of town. I can see him having a game that surprises a lot of people.
Yeah. It's just I like the numbers low. So yeah, like this one for the over. And then finishes off then with your fourth and final pick. Where's the under going to be?
I don't think Detroit and Dallas are going to make it.
It's a big number, isn't it?
The way that Dallas has played. Sure, CeeDee Lamb is going to get his. The Lions' defense is underrated. Their offense is capable of putting up points, but they're not going to need to. I don't think. I think the game script is going to be a whole lot of rushing, a whole very little pass game on both sides, and just that clock's going to go. The clock's going to go away, and points aren't going to be scored. So.
Huge number and a big game for both teams. And I think we've talked about this in the first part of the show. Potentially a bit of an emotional letdown spot for the Lions, so to speak. They've climbed that Mount Everest. They're winning that NFC North for the first time. They're going to be hosting a playoff game for the first time in 30 years.
Right.
And outpouring of emotion. And on the road to Dallas, I don't know if that's the one you want on a slightly shorter week. They need to prove something as well.
No, the likelihood of it turning into a shootout isn't that great. Dallas's defense can hold Detroit down, and Detroit doesn't have a whole lot to play for. So, and Dallas hasn't been. They've been too inconsistent. So, yes, they could put up a huge number, but I don't think it's going to be necessary. I think they're going to rely heavily on Pollard and a little bit to Jake Ferguson and CeeDee Lamb, and that's not going. There's not going to be much more than that. I like them to win, just because of what you said. It's that letdown after the emotional week that the Lions have had. They don't have a whole lot to do except for tune up for the playoffs. It's not a necessary victory for them, but it is for Dallas. If Dallas gets out to an early lead and they control the clock, there's not going to be a whole lot of scoring.
Yeah, I say it's 53.5. It's just a big. Whenever I see the Lions get to 50 and above, I'm always on the under for them because such a big number.
Now, week 11 or 12, totally different situation. Week 17, it's not the same.
And these standalone games, primetime standalone games, this is Monday Night Football on Saturday this week because of the college football playoff. These standalone games have just hit the under, at such a high rate. So yeah, I like that as well. So your card we've got for you, Brendon, we've got the Rams as your favourite, 5.5 point favourites against the Giants. The Raiders, 3.5 point underdogs against the Colts. Over Chargers, Broncos, 37.5, and under Lions, Cowboys, 53.5. Best of luck with it, Brendon.
Thank you.
If you can hit that 4-0. Just before we finish off, just remind the people, where can we follow you? Where can we find you?
At Big Boned FFB on Twitter, and go grab a subscription to playerprofiler.com. It's too valuable.
Nice. Will certainly help you out for sure. That brings the end to our week 17 episode, picks and preview episode, and our last episode of the calendar year as well. So we'll be back with our review episode on January the 2nd or 3rd at some point. So happy New Year to everyone. Enjoy your NFL football on New Year's Eve. Make sure you all watch the college football playoff on New Year's Day and the bowl games. Get it all watched. You can get it all on the TV now here in the UK. But big thanks from us at Good Teams and Great Teams Cover. If you've watched or followed or whatever you've done, in our first year, we really appreciate it. So if you're not, go follow us Spotify, That's where the episodes drop. YouTube, so you can see our faces at GTW_GTC. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all at GTW_GTC. And we'll see you in 2024 with our first episode of the year to review Week 17. Brendon, have a Happy New Year, and we'll
Happy
see
New
you
Year.
soon.
Yeah, I made sure I didn't give you guys the backwards peace sign, which is standard in the U.S.
Nice. We appreciate that. This is a family show.
Have a great New Year, you guys.